But first tonight, Iran threatens Israel, warning of catastrophic consequences if the IDF continues to target Hezbollah. But Israel is making it clear that it is preparing for a ground invasion. This comes as the US and France develop a plan for an immediate 21-day truce between Israel and Hezbollah. And here was Joe Biden during an appearance on ABC's The View.
An all-out war is possible, but I think there's also the opportunity, or still in play, to have a settlement that could fundamentally change the whole region.
And Penny Wong once again seems to shrug her shoulders at the constant threat of terrorism by urging Israel to have a ceasefire to stop.
We condemn Hezbollah's continued attacks on Israel. But I do say again, Lebanese civilians cannot be made to pay the price of defeating Hezbollah. The global community has made clear that this destructive cycle must stop. What has happened in recent days only makes an immediate ceasefire in Gaza even more urgent. You would have heard me say this before, and I say it again, Lebanon cannot become the next Gaza.
You could be forgiven for wondering if Penny Wong was the Foreign Minister for the Middle East, given how much time she spends speaking about and lecturing Israel. And just hours ago, she revealed that she'd met with the Prime Minister for Palestine, and I say that with inverted commas. At the same time as Israel is under siege from terrorist groups on the north and the south, well, Penny Wong is worried about Palestinian self-determination. This is what she tweeted. She said, "I spoke with the Palestine PMO about our commitment to advancing the Palestinian people's legitimate aspiration to self-determination. Australia is pressing for a ceasefire, urgent humanitarian access, release of hostages, and prevention of regional escalation." And as you can see in that photograph, the Australian and Palestinian flag side by side on the table. That meeting just a week after the Palestinians put forward their one-sided hostile resolution that never mentioned Hamas, didn't mention the hostages, and didn't mention October 7, and instead called for boycotts of Israel and that it pay reparations. Well, I'd like to see Penny Wong spend more time demanding the return of the hostages, especially baby Kafir and his brother Ariel. Did she raise them with the Palestinian Prime Minister? Did she raise them at the United Nations? This is a very different approach from the coalition, which has showed immense understanding of what Israel has been dealing with.
The fact that people wouldn't be standing with Israel and would be equivocating or somehow giving comfort in their language to the Iranians is beyond anyone's comprehension.
Israel has been under attack from Hezbollah for many months. Hundreds of rockets being launched, thousands of people have been forced to leave their homes, and Israel, as every nation, has a right to self-defence.
Penny Wong needs to realise that the threat posed by radical Islamic terror groups is to the West, including Australia, not just to Israel. Iran's fight is against the West and the United States, and Israel is the first step. And Iran is now threatening involvement if Israel continues to pursue Hezbollah. Iran is a powerful, well-funded enemy. It's working increasingly closely with China, Russia and North Korea to destabilise the region and provoke war. The Iranian weapon capability has grown in recent years, particularly during the Biden administration. Iran has supplied lethal, precision-guided missiles to Hezbollah, and the Ayatollahs have fast-tracked their weapons program to the point that they've also been arming Russia against Ukraine. And just this week, Reuters reports that Iran is helping arm the Houthi rebels with advanced missiles called P-800 Onyx from Russia. And they're doing this to help the terror group target commercial shipping in the Red Sea. Hamas's weaponry is, quite frankly, primitive compared to the Iranian supply to Hezbollah. And we hope that Israel has managed to destroy some of those weapons over the past week. Now, there's no question that if Iran does step in to help Hezbollah and attack Israel, the United States will be right behind Israel. And even Kamala Harris made this clear in her debate against Trump, that she would never withhold weapons in a war with Iran. Yet we're seeing the Democrats push hard for a ceasefire, which would be convenient for them ahead of the US election. They want to be able to say they've brokered a peace deal. But the Wall Street Journal editorial today makes the critical point that the United States has responded to the terrorism in the Red Sea with the equivalent of strongly worded letters. Small missile strikes that do no lasting damage to the Houthis' capabilities. The Wall Street Journal editorial says the administration feared a more forceful response would lead to a regional war. The irony is that US passivity has now led to a growing regional conflict. And the Wall Street Journal editorial's view is that Joe Biden's foreign policy legacy is the disorder we're seeing right now. In my view, Israel seems to be the only country with serious strength left globally. It's why its genius and Bolshoi pager attack was breathtaking and awe-inspiring. The days of American forces enjoying political support to hunt down terrorists seem a distant memory. Now the political focus of the left is to let the terrorists live, to have a ceasefire, rather than to track down and kill each one that murdered civilians and took children and babies hostage. Hostages who still haven't been able to return to their beds, their homes, or their loved ones. It's disgraceful that the pressure once again is on Israel to stand down despite being bombarded with 8,000 missiles, despite 70,000 Israelis having to flee their homes in the north, and despite 12 innocent children being murdered in a Hezbollah strike. The grief and the agony is tangible. And we saw that last night in my interview with the heartbroken mother of little Elma, who was killed in that Hezbollah strike at the Majd al-Shams. As former Labor Minister Mike Kelly said on my program this week, every country has the obligation to protect its own citizens from acts of war beyond their borders. He said this was an obligation, and Israel is fulfilling its duty to keep its citizens safe under international law. Can you imagine Australia doing nothing if 250 Aussies were taken hostage, if more than 1,200 were killed, and 12 children were murdered while they were playing soccer? The Israeli ambassador to Australia, Amir Maimon, wrote today that there is still a diplomatic pathway to regional stability, but that the international community needs to step up. He says the international community should delegate Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps a terror group and increase sanctions on Iran, targeting the Ayatollah's regime and their financial, military and terror networks. He says this would cripple their ability to finance Hezbollah. But he also argues that the UN Security Council should enforce its own resolution, which mandates that Hezbollah has to stay north of the Litani River. And this would prevent its attacks on Israel. At the moment, it has virtually militarized the area north of the border with Israel. And the UN has done nothing. Amir Maimon points out that Israel stands at the forefront of this battle, defending not just its citizens, but the security and values of the free world. And this is a point that Penny Wong seems to forget as she continues to demand that Israel lay down its arms.